Hey guys, welcome back to another daily devotion from Devotable. My name is Landon, and if this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being a part of our group. I appreciate you stopping in and listening as I read a daily devotion from one of our awesome authors. If you want to learn a little bit more about Devotable, you certainly can. I would encourage you to go check out our website at devotableapp.com, and you can learn about all of the different things that we are doing and have done on that website, including connecting with us via our social media, checking out the books and devotional compilations that we've put together, learning more about all of our authors and contributors, and just checking out all of the other things that we do. That is kind of the central hub of all of the things that we do, so if you want to learn more about us, head on over to that website. Today is episode 286 of the Daily Devotion Podcast, and is titled, Whose Life Matters? It was contributed by Gary David Flamberg. Hebrews chapter 13 verses 1 through 2 reads, Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Let your neighbor know he or she matters. Let your co-worker who may not look or think like you know they matter. Let's talk about what it means to show people who may not look or think or act like us hospitality, what it means to show them love, and what it means to show all people that they actually matter and that Christ himself came to this world to die for them. Ever felt like the odd man or woman out? You know, the person who no one notices or sees. The one who's alone in a crowd. Maybe even the one who's shunned or even jeered. That was me during my growing up years. I was the kid who was shunned by the cool crowd. I was the kid who nobody wanted on their baseball team. I was the boy who not only couldn't get the girl, but was picked on by the girls. In other words, I didn't matter. That's exactly why Paul was so special. He was handsome, smart, and popular, a most likely to succeed type. And yet he noticed me. He befriended me. He listened to me. He treated me with respect. He refused to count me as a reject, like many of my other high school peers. To him, I was definitely someone who did matter. All around us are lives that matter. All around us are people whose lives matter, yet are never noticed. They file in and out or drift from church to church every week without anyone acknowledging them. They carry hurts, they carry sorrows, they carry fears. They also carry God's heart, God's calling, and God's anointing. And yet they may never be released from their darkness and into their calling. Why? Because we are too busy with our own agendas, our own circle of friends, and our own world to notice them. I know this firsthand. I've experienced it. Not only as an insecure teen, but also as a grown, spirit-filled adult. When I'm in an unfamiliar church setting, I almost always leave the same way, alone. Oh sure, there's the scheduled time during the service for visitors to stay seated and be greeted. But almost never does anyone spontaneously go out of their way to make me feel at home. Thanks be to God, I'm no longer crushed when others don't notice me. Why? Because I know who I am. Sure, I have the maturity that comes with being 60 years of age, but more than that, I owe my stability to the one to whom I gave my life over 4 decades ago. Truly, I am one who can testify with the psalmist long ago. He set my feet on a solid rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Psalm 40, verse 2. You see, that insecure teen from 40 or 50 years ago did not know the Jesus who I know now. And how was he introduced to me? Not in a vacuum, not in a dream, though I affirm such testimonies, not through watching Christian television. It was through Paul. It was through other Jesus followers like him whose paths I crossed as a young college student. To these dear saints, Jesus wasn't a religion. He was their life, and because he mattered to them, I mattered to them. Because of them, I am where I am today. Let people know they matter. Next time you go to church, find the person who wouldn't normally matter to you. Seek him or her out. Go out of your way to greet them, not at the scheduled time in the service, but spontaneously. Ask their name, ask a non-threatening question or two. Heck, just smile at them, shake their hand, let them know they matter. And hey, why stop with church? Let your neighbor know he or she matters. Let your coworker, who may not look or think like you, know they matter. Because when you come right down to it, every life matters. So let me just say and get this out of the way up front. I appreciate Gary's writing here, and I appreciate the message of what he has to say, and I understand exactly what he's saying and what he's not saying. And so let me come right out of the chute here and say that this is not a poke, this is not a prod at anything revolving around the Black Lives Matter movement. I can sit here and say to you and affirm to you that Black lives absolutely matter. I have no problems and no qualms about affirming that in a statement on this podcast. But I'll just get out of the way, and for those of you who are going to send me some sort of nasty gram or hate mail about Gary's verbiage here that every life matters, it is not a prod, it is not a poke at the Black Lives Matters movement. It is not a sleight of hand against that, as sometimes it may be. And I do understand that the All Lives Matter hashtag or movement, and in some circumstances, in some situations, has been a sleight of hand or a knee-jerk reaction to the Black Lives Matters movement. But that is not what this is. So for those of you who are going to think about calling me out or sending me nasty messages or any of the other things, thinking that this is a prod or poke at the Black Lives Matter movement, it is most definitely not. I can sit here and affirm to you without any qualms or reservations that Black lives absolutely matter. But what this devotion is and what it means is saying to us as Christians that sometimes we do a very poor job at showing people that come into our church that they actually matter, that they have a place, that they have a purpose, that they are called and anointed by God, that they have a special place in God's kingdom and in His will here on earth. Sometimes we as the church do a really bad job of showing that to people and making people feel warm and welcome when they set foot into our church. I've been on the receiving end of that unwarm welcome. I know many of you have been on the receiving end of that not so warm welcome if you're traveling or visiting a church. And the seat and greet time that a lot of churches do just doesn't really cut it anymore. It's so cold and so calculated and so callous that time, I think, quite honestly, should just be abolished from services. It doesn't make people feel comfortable. It actually makes people feel uncomfortable when they're singled out like that. And especially now, with global pandemic crossing the world, it doesn't make any sense for a time in churches where people turn around and wave or maybe even shake hands. That puts people in a very uncomfortable situation if they don't want to shake hands with people. So not only is that time just kind of weird and doesn't really make sense, if you're doing that in your church, I would encourage you to maybe think about or evaluate whether or not that actually makes sense to do anymore. But for those of us who have experienced that sort of cold and calculated time that doesn't really make people feel welcome or didn't really make us feel welcome, this devotion points out very clearly that the church does a pretty bad job of making visitors feel welcome a lot of times. Now, I have the privilege, or have had the privilege, of going to a church that I feel makes people feel welcome most of the time. There are circumstances where visitors fall through the cracks or people don't get noticed, and there has been a rare circumstance where people may have filled out a visitor's card and left some feedback and just said they didn't feel welcome for whatever reason. But for people that enter into our church, I've heard the overwhelming amount of people that end up joining saying that they felt welcome, that they felt loved, and that they immediately found a connection with people in our church. And so I think that our church does a very good job of welcoming people. But I know when you get down to a personal basis, I myself have a really hard time with greeting visitors in this way. I'm not a very outgoing person. I'm mostly an introvert. I don't like walking up to strangers and just carrying on sort of weird or unfamiliar conversations with visitors. It's really way far out of my comfort zone. But one thing that I've noticed and I've had to get over is doing that very thing as we are adult leaders within our college group. Very often there will be college kids, especially around the beginning of the school year or right after Christmas break, where people are coming back to the college campuses. There will be new faces that come into our church. There's several Christian colleges in my town, and as Christian kids or Christian college students come to our town, they're looking for a church, and a lot of times they don't have a church home, so they'll just start visiting churches. And so quite often I'll see new faces in our college group, and no one knows them, and they don't know anyone. And there's some student leaders and adult leaders in our college group that are really good about going out of their way to meet these people and greet them and make them feel welcome. And I've had to get over myself and get over my insecurities about doing that because I've been put in a position to be an adult leader. And I have the responsibility of showing some of these people that they are welcomed in our church, that they are loved. This is a place where they can learn. This is a place where they can grow. This is a place where they can make friends and feel safe. But just as Gary David points out here, there was a man in his life named Paul that made him feel welcome. We need to be that in our churches to any visitor that we see. We need to let people know that they're welcomed, that this is a place where they can learn, that they can be themselves, they actually matter, and they can find their purpose that Christ has for their life. The church doesn't need to be a country club for people that put on a good mask and a good show and say that they've got it all together. My pastor says it, I don't know where he got this, but he says that the church is a hospital for sinners. The church is a hospital for people that need help. It's not a country club. It's a place where people need to go and they can realize that they matter, that they don't have to be perfect. And as an adult, I've been able to come to the point in my life where it doesn't really matter to me. It's not going to affect me if I go to some place and I'm not welcome, or if I go to a new church and I don't feel welcome or no one greets me. That's not going to affect me long-term or psychologically. But I can remember as a teen, as a young student, as a college student, if I were to go someplace and that happened, it would affect me. Especially in high school, where people are just looking for affirmation, they're looking to fit in, they're looking to find people that are like them, that they can hang out with, they can find security from. And we need to realize that not everybody has grown up into maturity like that. Some people, well into their adulthood, are looking for places like that. And we need, as the church, to be a place like that. I believe it's biblical. I believe that we are called to show people that they matter when they step into the church, when they step into our lives, and even so much as to say that we are called to step out of the church, step outside of the walls of the church, and to go seek people and show them that they actually matter, that they matter to us, they matter to Christ, that Christ has a purpose and a calling for their lives. That is our responsibility, and that is the Great Commission. That is how we establish relationships with people, that people open up to us, and then in turn, we get the opportunity to share the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ with them. It is not very often that we get the opportunity to share the gospel with complete strangers, and that it doesn't fall on rocky soil and just wither and die. It is more often that we get to share the gospel with people who we've established a relationship with, where their heart has been softened, where we plant the seed of the gospel into loose soil that God has tilled, and they're ready to hear that, and they're ready to accept it, and they're ready to have a conversation with us about who God is, who Jesus was, and what he did. So we need to let that sink in. I need to let that sink in. That I need to do better and be better about letting people that come into my church, and for that matter, people that come into my life, know that they matter, that I love them, that they can talk to me about things, they can have my ear, they can have my attention, they can have my time, because every life matters for sure. Every life matters to Christ, and it is our responsibility to show people that that is true. It is our responsibility to tell them about Jesus, and we can't do that if they don't feel like they fit in, if they don't feel like they belong, if they don't feel like they matter. So thank you, Gary David, for sharing this with us. Thank you for sharing with us something that maybe we've talked about or thought about many, many years ago when we were in high school or college, but haven't really thought about since then. But it really does matter that we make people understand and we make people feel like they belong. Thank you for sharing your testimony with us. Thank you for telling us about people like Paul who spoke into your life and really let you understand that you weren't an outcast just because you weren't popular, just because you weren't in the cool crowd. That didn't mean that you didn't matter. We need to be more like Paul. We need to be more like this person, Paul, in your life to other people. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being willing to share with us and write for Devotable. Gary David has been writing for a while, and every time I hear what he writes, it's always impactful. He always has an applicable word to share with us and something that we can think about in our daily lives. I would encourage you guys to go check out his profile at the top or the bottom of today's devotion, where you can learn more about him. You can learn more about the social media profiles where you can follow him and read his blog or listen to all the other cool stuff that he's doing. Go check him out and give him some love, show him some follows from the Devotable family. I appreciate everything that you guys do, being a part of this group, being a part of this family, sharing our devotions, sharing our books, having input on the projects and things that we do. All of that stuff matters and helps us grow, helps us get exposed to new people. And I appreciate everything that you guys do for us. I hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy, and I will catch you on the next podcast. Thank you guys for joining me again today for another daily devotion. It is truly my honor to get to read these devotions for you guys as we dive deeper into God's Word each and every day. Like I mentioned before, if you want to learn more about Devotable and all of the cool stuff that we do, head on over to devotableapp.com and you can learn all about the things that we do over there. I would also like to take a couple of minutes, if you're still listening with me, and talk about a project that we have coming up. So last year we did an amazing book project on prayer. It was a 26-week devotional compilation and prayer journal, talking about different aspects of prayer from the scriptures, and then giving some journaling pages to allow you to journal throughout the week. And you can find that project on our website. The book is titled Prayer, Approaching the Throne of Grace. But I'm super excited to move into another project that we're working on. This one is going to be a 16-week devotional and journal around the subject of equality. This is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that I think that we, as Christians, if we have a platform like Devotable, we have a responsibility to speak up and to talk about equality from a Christian perspective. This not only is a devotional, it is also a family journal. So much like the previous project on prayer, this is going to be a journal, but it's also going to be a family journal because I think this is an important topic that we need to talk about with our family and with our children. We need to educate our children about the importance of equality, and not just racial equality, but gender equality, and then talking about other sorts of equality as well. Guys, we are all one race created in the image of God, and there is no room for prejudice in the Christian life, and it's important that we speak out against all forms of prejudice. I'm super excited. We are right in the middle of working on this project, and with God's help, we'll be able to have this project out by the holiday season. But if you want to learn more about that project, stay tuned to this podcast or go follow us on social media, as I'm going to be starting to post more about that project because we're getting into the depths of that project. And lastly, I want to take a couple of seconds and just talk about this. Devotable takes a lot of resources to run. We have a lot of different writers who graciously write for us for free, but we also have development and advertising costs. We have website hosting costs and marketing costs and all of these things that we try to pay for out of the money that Devotable makes on these book projects. But by and large, Devotable is a free project. We don't charge for anything but our books. And it takes quite a bit to run Devotable each and every day. So if Devotable is something that you enjoy, if it's something that you enjoy partaking in or sharing with others, or just reading the devotions and they're blessing you in one way or another, I would encourage you to think about becoming a Patreon partner with us. For as little as $1 a month, you can partner with us via our Patreon page and help us out financially. And it would truly be a blessing to me if you guys would consider doing that. You can learn more about that at devotableapp.com/contribute and click on the Patreon link. Thank you so much, guys, for being with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.